Check this out on X. As many as 1.7 million independent truckers could choose to participate in the New York City supply boycott. We've already seen how much traction this is getting on social media, on X, on Reddit, on other social media platforms. Everyone's talking about it. It's one of the hottest topics right now, with some of the biggest people coming out and giving support to the truckers. So essentially what really happened was Donald Trump was accused of fraud, and he's basically guilty, and he's forced to pay $355 million according to the New York City judge, which is making a lot of truckers very frustrated about this. They are standing with Trump, and there's going to be a pretty significant boycott. Now, one thing to keep this straight is not every single trucker is on strike. Okay, obviously there's still a lot of truckers out there who's willing to deliver goods to New York City, but it's not really about that. It's more like if New York City experiences like 10% of truckers refusing to go to New York City, the price of goods in the city will be extremely expensive. And on top of that, New York City is already crumbling because of the whole migrant crisis. So making goods more expensive when the city is already super duper expensive does not sit well with anyone. And one of the biggest things that I've been seeing on social media is a lot of people are actually flat out mocking many of these truckers. So a lot of people are actually saying how this boycott doesn't make any sense, and how if truckers don't do the work, their jobs will probably be taken over by many of the migrants, for example, who went to New York City. A lot of people have also said that if truckers refuse to carry a load, they should be fired immediately and replaced by someone who wants to work. There's also a lot of people saying that truckers are dumb, they're unreliable. Well, let me tell you guys this. Have you ever drove a Class 8 semi-truck? Probably not if you're watching the video. Now, I'm sure some of you guys have. And let me tell you one thing. Trucks are extremely exhausting. Now, the driving part is easy enough, but actually trucking throughout the whole entire country is something totally difficult and very exhausting. You're eating food from a brown paper bag all the time. You're always constantly encountering people. You're always away from your family. If you're married, you're basically never seeing your wife. And high blood pressure and many other diseases because you're always constantly sitting on the truck. It's very difficult to find good sleep because you're basically sleeping in your truck. And you're working hours and hours a day. You're always caffeinated, you're irritated, you're always driving. And I gotta give a big applause to the truckers, because these are the guys who run our economy. Without truckers, basically the US will crumble to nothing, because most of our goods are shipped by trucks, not by rail. Other countries might be the exception. There's countries that have really good rail networks that have their goods delivered by that. But in America, from the ports, from the stores to your doorstep, usually involves a massive Class 8 semi-truck. That's what it is. So these truckers are the backbone of the economy. And guess what? We are facing one of the biggest truck shortages in history. Okay, people are saying that there's a shortage of nearly 80,000 drivers. And when trucking is this exhausting and the burnout rates are crazy, I don't think anyone could just simply sign up on a piece of paper and become a trucker. So truckers right now have a lot of power, considering by the end of the decade, there's already numbers that could be facing almost 200,000 shortage of drivers. That's a lot of truckers that we're missing short. And don't be banking your money on autonomous driving trucks, because even those things, you kind of need like a driver behind it. And if you look at some of the stuff on X, truckers are talking about not delivering to New York City for 3 years. You thought groceries are expensive? Just wait, it's getting out of hand. Now, one of the biggest things that you also need to know is some companies are still willing to ship to New York City, but they're slapping on top like a 30% extra pay for their truckers, which means that goods will be very expensive. Even if New York City gets the same amount of deliveries, if all the truckers are getting higher pay because some of them are boycotting it, it's going to get a lot more expensive. Let's see where this is going. This is one of the most interesting protests I've ever seen. And this is one of the biggest things unfolding right now. Every news agency is covering about it. A lot of people are even a little bit excited over this. And it's like the first time since New York has gotten any sort of boycott. Right now, New York City is kind of losing its luster as a financial capital. New York City is also spending billions of dollars on a migrant crisis with nothing to show for. And times are kind of changing. We're also seeing a lot of people kind of sick and tired of what's happening to some of the America's biggest cities. And it's really interesting because many of America's biggest cities are kind of going to the dumpster with population declines, despite America being a country where the population is increasing. let's see what happens, guys. It's one of the most interesting scenarios out there. And can the truckers win this? Who knows? Comment below.